Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Well, welcome everybody. Once again, Last Stop Penn Station, Ian Riccaboni, Cary Silkin. Cary, we're starting with a tribute today with the departed Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
One of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt about it. R.I.P. Kamala.
Interesting Ring of Honor tie-in. It wrestled Bryan Danielson for the championship on a non-Ring of Honor show, no less.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that. And then in 2009, I guess my grandmother or my father told me years ago, don't speak ill of the dead. You know, I didn't have a good experience with Kamala. We had booked him in 2009 for the WrestleMania weekend.
Mm-hmm. Supercard.
Wasn't it the weekend?
Yeah. I think it was 2009 in maybe Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we had Bushwhacker Luke,
wonderful.
And I was saying, who do you know who'd be easy to work with? He suggested Kamala. Luke's never steered me wrong except this one time. So I had to do all this rearranging of the travel. He was going to somewhere in Chicago, and it was expensive to start with. And he didn't really want to do much in the ring.
Sure. He was already 55, 57. Right. Yeah.
And the deal was we were going to split the autograph money, because by the time I got him to Houston and got him out of Houston to where the next place he was going, I'd already spent like $600. And he didn't really have to do anything. And it looked like, we had like a pre-sale of maybe 1,200 people. So we knew we were going to get a good house.
Yeah.
So he was good on the show. I remember they did something with Bobby Dempsey.
Right. And Bobby had the paint. You can see that now on the Ring of Honor YouTube page. We put it up and you can watch it in full. Yeah.
That was fun. And he seemed like a nice guy. But here's what happened. At the end, we should have been on the ball more. And when the autograph signing was done, Luke did like $900.
Wow.
So which we split, he was thrilled. Mm-hmm. And Kamala had like double the line.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Luke was around more.
Yeah.
And he'd been to a number of Ring of Honor shows, and I don't think Kamala had been to a lot of to many of these conventions or WrestleMania weekends. But anyway, when it came time to get the money from Kamala, he's like, I took in $450. I'm like, and I grabbed Sid, right? And whatever. That's the way it goes. God rest in peace, Kamala. It's okay. But that was my little experience with him.
You said he was a nice guy.
He was
fun guy.
He was a nice man, except for robbing us.
Well, John Thorne of AIW also had a similar experience.
Did he?
He took a little bit of a heat on social media. Morning.
That's why I didn't post.
Yeah.
So I could give me the heat now, folks. But that's why when Kamala passed away, I wasn't gonna say anything. He went through some really rough times.
He did, but what a career! I mean, how many wrestlers can say they wrestled Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, all the Von Erichs, Jerry Lawler, Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson? It's incredible. I mean, to span, to come just at the right time to face just about who's Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. He wrestled everybody.
And I was listening today to Bowdrin and Barry Rose podcast. Barry Rose is a good guy. So is Jeff Bowdrin. They're very knowledgeable. They had on a guy who had just apparently there's a biography or an autobiography on Kamala, and Kamala claimed the most money he ever made. You would think it was WWF.
Yeah, wrestling Hogan in the Garden.
He said it was in Mid-South.
Really?
Yeah, that maybe that's why he was in the fleecing mode, because he got fleeced.
Right? I mean, so you got to put your defense mechanisms up sometimes, I guess, if you've been,
right.
Happened to you.
So, and this goes back to the old days of, and we touched on this, I think, in one of our last episodes, that a lot of the black wrestlers got taken advantage of financially and in other ways by the promoters for many years. Yeah. And but that's what Kamala said, at least in this book. So I found that interesting. And he body slammed Andre the Giant?
Yeah, he body slammed Andre, and
before Hogan did.
In between Hogan, the first time Hogan did it, because he did it in Allentown, I think.
Really?
In 80 or 81, yeah. And then he did it again, obviously, in 87 at WrestleMania 3. But, yeah, he did it in between. And, that's a short list, though. I mean, it was them, Ronnie Garvin, and Harley Race, I think. And that's just about all the guys that Andre let slam him. So,
right. And it was always that he... Oh, I think, didn't it happen in Mexico too, like maybe once?
Most likely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Incredible. Well, Kamala, one of a kind character, and
that's for sure.
That's we're all about characters here. And today we're going to be hearing about Shredded Ed, which has piqued my interest. Shredded Ed sounds like Stefan, from Saturday Night Live, when he says he's meeting all these characters. Oh, there's a new club opening. Shredded Ed will be dancing. That's some of these stories remind me. I hear these names and these characters and places.
Well, he didn't come into it being called Shredded Ed.
Okay.
I gave him that name once getting to know him. So
let's walk everybody back, though.
Coming back after, and got a lot of good feedback from the Joe Savage stories. And I found on Facebook, there's a Facebook group of, I was talking so much, and I'll be talking more today about this boom of the clubs in Jersey, Long Island, and a little bit in PA and Connecticut that existed back then. And I found a Facebook group specifically about that.
Wow.
So I posted the pictures I had of Joe Savage, as well as our, they don't like when you promote your own stuff.
Sure.
But they allowed me to post the last podcast. And I asked on that, there's just like 5,000 members. I asked, does anybody remember? Yeah, I'm the man that was there 150 times. I should know this set list. I really want to know that Heaven and Hell second set list, not just bits and pieces of it. And there was quite a few responses. Everybody who no one could fill in the blanks of the set list, but everybody who responded says, yeah, I saw him at the Hound and Hare in Tarrytown, New York. What a show. I saw him so-and-so. Everybody was like, everybody was blown away, but I've yet to be able to fill in the blanks. I also found on Facebook, but he hasn't responded to me yet, his brother, who was the sound man.
Okay, Mike. Yeah.
And I'm hoping to get hold of him. But people, there's people out there that saw him, and Joe's still around.
Yeah.
Not actively playing as far as I know, but man, I wish there was footage of that, but there just isn't.
Yeah, sounds incredible. And
like you would want to have footage of early Springsteen at the Stone Pony or something.
Stuff like that turns up, Cary. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I'm frequently shocked what turns up on some of these YouTube channels, some of Steve Forbert concerts before he hit it big from CBGBs, and and some of the other artists that I love just show up out of thin air sometimes. So
Right.
we'll keep our eyes peeled. I'll set a Google alert for Joe Savage.
If you Google him, there's so little about him.
Yeah.
But let's hope we. So I came back from Joe Savage. Myself and Gary, we talked about bailing out on Joe Savage.
Right after Sammy Davis, right after the Amazing Kreskin.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wizard wanted to go on their own, which we discussed.
Right.
And it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work. And these guys were just such knockout musicians, but it didn't matter. So this left me in a position where, from the time I had gotten back and reunited with my beloved friend Jeff, that's when this drug, this cocaine use and being involved with dealing it just for the only reason I didn't want to be a drug dealer. I wanted to be able to have as much cocaine as possible.
Hold on. So okay. Again, we've established I've taken no drugs. Is this an addiction thing, or is this you're growing up as a little kid and you want to own Toys R Us just for the idea of being all around all the toys?
It's an addiction thing.
Okay.
Once, I enjoyed drinking and weed smoking. I didn't enjoy. We talked about. The great Charlie Starr.
Yeah.
And that PCP stuff,
Ooh.
the angel dust, whatever you call it. That wasn't something I wanted to pursue.
Okay.
And same with my minor run with psychedelics, some LSD trips.
Yeah.
Just wasn't for me. But when I did the cocaine, the first time, it wasn't the first time, but the first time I sat down with real cocaine that was good, it's like it just took that one time for me to be like, this is something, once I got familiar with it, I liked the way I felt doing it. I liked the way it felt being in my pocket. And the only way, I didn't have any money. The only way for me to obtain this was to be this small-time, suburban, shit-ass drug dealer. And I had a natural ability to hustle. Maybe it was from the days of canvassing, knocking door to door. Maybe, that ability stayed with me through all the years through the ticket business, which hopefully we'll see again one day.
Yeah, hopefully. But spring is coming.
Yes,
hopefully.
Spring will come again.
Yes.
But to be able to do this cocaine like I wanted to, and Jeff also, we had to be able to, buy it, sell it, and get more. And I don't ever think for 1 minute, there was a time where I thought, the plan was always you were going to make money. Yeah, you're
right. Yeah.
And I did successfully do that. And folks, I'm not here to advise. I'm here. If anything, this should be a deterrent for anybody who thinks there's fast money, easy money, fun in drug dealing of any nature. It's dangerous. It's not healthy. You're hurting other people. You yourself are gonna. There's no future in it. So, but there were some times where I was able to buy I don't know, a couple ounces of weed and make small packages. Because it just was. The consumption factor for me wasn't there. Once I had the larger amounts of the cocaine, I just wanted to do it all.
Wow.
You would cut the cocaine with these with these various powders to dilute it, and eventually you'd have stuff that's so weak, you'd get a bad reputation. I wasn't selling on the street corners. I was selling
eBay feedback.
I was selling
Yeah.
I was selling to people I knew and people in bars, and I'm talking about local.
Yeah.
And
How'd you get it?
Well, upon coming back, and this is going on during the short-lived Wizard. So we're talking 76 into 77.
Okay.
Jeff had met this guy. He was another suburban kid. Let's just call him Stewie.
Okay.
And Stewie turned us on to this other guy, Shredded Ed.
Okay.
While that was going on, and it might have been at that New Year's Eve, that one Wizard show, New Year's Eve.
In Maryland?
No, it was at that Julio's in Warren, New Jersey.
Yeah.
I met a third guy, this guy, George. He looked like he should be in Van Halen. And so between Stewie, Shredded Ed, and Shredded Ed and Stewie knew each other, but I don't think they liked each other.
Yeah.
So, and then there was George. So between the three of them, right, we would, and you never had to pay up front. Maybe the first time I bought from George, I had to pay up front. But once you establish some kind of reputation and credentials, then they would give you, like, not too much, but if you had enough for a quarter ounce, they would give you a half ounce. You have enough K. So
sounds like Amway, except very illegal.
Right. Yeah. And what would happen would be we're getting in debt to all three parties at the same time.
Can't get out.
Right. So we owe Shredded Ed money. So we'll get some from Stewie. Try to sell that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I see George. George gives me some, and before you know it, you're accruing these numbers.
Yeah.
With these people,
and you're wanting to snort it.
Well, you're always wanting to snort it.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's awful. But there's some stories I'll try to weave into this about these particular guys. Before I go on to some rock and roll, one nice thing Shredded Ed ever did.
Okay.
He did one nice thing. Because he was like a Fonzie character.
Okay.
Not a Ponzi character.
Well, he was running a Ponzi scheme, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and I was telling my friend today who was over this afternoon, who listens to our podcast faithfully, our friend Chris M. And he's saying, "Oh, you guys are doing a podcast tonight." He goes, "I love the last few of them." I go, "Well, thank you." And then he said he too was fascinated about Shredded Ed. And Chris, I know from going to the meetings, so he's in recovery. So anyway, Shredded. I was trying to describe Shredded Ed to him, and like his background, so. What I learned after meeting him, that Shredded Ed's vocation prior to the cocaine was he was a what do they call that when you to remove bugs from your house? Exterminator. You're right. Thank you. Oh, geez, an exterminator. He was an exterminator, but due to the fumes from the chemicals of the exterminating, he had some lawsuit going. Yeah. So he was looking for this cash bounty.
I don't blame him. Some of the stuff they used to, DDT was legal for a long, long time. And, There's a lot of things they used to put in those chemicals that aren't legal now.
So that was his job when he was working. I didn't. But somehow he fell into cocaine, and even though he was probably in his late 30s, he too discovered the cocaine probably within a year before I did, and he was in the same boat. Okay. As I was, as most people that do cocaine. Any of our listeners, any of our listeners, and there's plenty out there that have done cocaine or know about the horrors of it, know the cycle. And it's like, talk about the old saying, one's too many and 1,000's never enough.
Oh.
It applies to that.
Okay.
It's like that first little sniff is the best, and then you're just chasing.
Oh,
it's like a game. All right,
yeah, gambling.
It's no different than that.
Yeah.
It's that it's that high, and you'd rather be just to be in the game anyway. So that was some of Ed's background.
Yeah.
George's background, I don't know, except he just, he just hustled, he hustled drugs. But there was, once again, this just vicious, horrible cycle that went on. And, the one nice thing that Ed did, he was going out with this girl that was a hooker.
Okay.
But she wasn't a street. I had some experience with street hookers, females. As a young man, because we would go into the city. When we would go to these concerts at the Garden, I talked about going to Zeppelin and seeing Wings Over America and Quadrophenia. We'd be around, the 8th Avenue, Times Square area. And I noticed, when we would take the bus would drop you at Port Authority. And when you would walk down 8th Avenue, if it was from dusk on, people are going to think I'm making this up. And many a person that has been with me at the Hammerstein, when we walked out in the neighborhood, I would tell a lot of our friends, I think including you, the story, how the girls on 8th Avenue, starting at 40th Street, where Port Authority block ends, so going down 40th, 39th, right down to 34th Street. I guess it's sort of stopped by 35th Street because 34th was too major.
Yeah, that's a major artery, and you're by the Garden and all that.
There were these girls, shoulder to shoulder. I'm not making this up. If they weren't so shoulder to shoulder, they were maybe socially distanced at 3 feet apart.
Wow.
And we're talking hundreds of them.
Really?
Hundreds of them.
And this is 74?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I remember my good friend Dale, who went on me with the road trip to Greenville, Tennessee.
Right.
I got a nice picture of Dale. I'm going to put it up in memoriam. And I found a picture of Joe Aarons also. The great Joe Aarons. The
great ticket salesman.
No, Joe Frozen Stiff.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
That's right. So I remember it was Dale's birthday. Was it his 18th birthday? Probably. Who knows? Could have been his 19th or his 17th. Didn't matter. And I hadn't had any experience yet with these female hookers, but I knew where they were. That much I knew.
Yeah. And
I knew that I think I asked my cousin Mike, how much are those girls in the city? Because he had some dalliances with them. It's like, well, like $20. Sometimes you could go over by Lincoln, by 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, and they're like, $10. He says, but you got to be careful. I go, well, what do you mean you got to be careful? He goes, well, sometimes they're not girls.
Okay.
And you really can't tell the difference.
Sure.
I go, well, what about the girls on 8th Avenue? What about he goes, no, those are women. He goes, you got to be careful, though. I go, just about, you're just general safety.
Sure.
So anyway, I remember Dale's birthday. I think between us, I think I was the one who was treating, so it was my money. So it wasn't.
You were generous even back then.
So it was. I might have had $50 on me, and I don't think Dale had any money, and or he had a few dollars. So the plan was to go into the city, and I was gonna partake also.
Mm-hmm.
And after we got to the city, we went and had a few beers, and it boiled down to this. I had $40 left, and we needed bus fare to get home.
Sure.
All right?
Yeah.
So we're going up and down 8th Avenue. And the girls, do you know what they would say to you?
No.
Do you think they might say, "Oh, do you want to fuck?" No. There was a common thing.
Yeah.
Honey, you looking for a date?
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah,
it's very pleasant. I wasn't expecting something that pleasant.
Are you looking for a date?
What if so? Well, we can digress later. But what if somebody was like, "Yeah, why don't we go down to the bar and?"
Oh, they'd say, well, they'd quickly.
Okay, they would
quickly
smarten
them up.
Okay,
yes,
okay,
exactly.
All right.
So, there's 200 women.
Wow.
And all shapes, all sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Some not so nice, some half decent looking, and that's where the action was. So they all wanted. It was like a union scale.
Very, very good. Yeah, we like when workers unite.
They wanted $20.
Okay.
And honey, you need another $5 for the room.
Okay.
Well, that was over our budget.
Right.
That would have left us, that I could have sent Dale by himself.
Yeah.
But I was figuring out, let me take a shot at this too. So I would have acquiesced and let Dale do his thing. But this kindly woman, at the time, I would guess, to me, she looked a little older. When I say older, she was probably in her early 30s, right?
Okay, so about my age, yeah.
Right. She wasn't a knockout, but she was a nice-looking lady. And she had been watching us with the dozens of other men who were cruising the area. Mm-hmm. And she'd seen that, we must not have the money because these other her workmates are turning us down.
Right.
So unbeknownst to us, as we're walking by where she is, mm-hmm. she approaches us.
Really?
And she does not... And she says, "Hey boys, you looking for a date?" And I was at this point I was like, "Yeah, but we don't have enough money."
So you just threw it out there.
so she's like, "Well, what do you got, honey?" I go, "Well, all you guys want $20 and $5 for the room. I just don't have enough." She goes, "Baby, I'll tell you what. Is it for both of you?" I go, "Well, that would be really nice." She goes, "How about 15 each and 5 for the room?" This left me bus fare.
Yeah.
And maybe enough money for another quart of beer each, which might have been 65 cents at the time. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, cool. I'm like, "Well, where do we go?" And she's like, "Don't worry, baby. I got us. I got you." So I could show you the door. It exists to this day on 8th Avenue between 38th and 39th Street. The last time I walked by it after a Ring of Honor show at the Hammerstein, for some reason my car was parked at Port Authority that that I came in early. I didn't go to the lot next.
Yeah.
And as I walked by it, it's still there. So we're following her up 8th Avenue, and I'm nervous as hell. And the last thing I'm about as unhorny as you could be. Not, and it wasn't like, ooh, not the opposite, right? So somewhere between 38th and 39th Street, there's a buzzer. And it still exists today. So the last time I saw it, it had been turned into an Albanian restaurant. But here's the thing. You have to go down a flight of stairs.
Oh.
And I learned later in life, when we get into more of our Hoboken section of the late 80s, there was a bar I used to go to called Redheads.
Okay.
And Redheads... You familiar with Hoboken at all?
Not particularly.
Well, when you get off the PATH train, there's a ton of action with people just getting off the PATH. She had a great location. And there was one problem with her location. There was 4 steps down. So there were oftentimes people would stand at the front door and just sort of look. They just weren't sure. Like what this place is like.
Yeah.
As opposed to just walking through a door.
That's interesting.
But back to this nice lady. So she hits this buzzer. And all I see is this flight. This is no 4 steps. This is a long flight of steps going down. And it's dark. I think it was the summertime, but it wasn't well lit. I'm like, where the hell is she taking us? This is no good. So we go down and around a little curve. And there was a guy at a desk. And as we're going down the steps, she stops and she says, give the man at the desk your $5 each. We're like, oh, okay. So the guy's at the desk. And I give the guy the $10. He don't say nothing. He was sort of like C.C. Harris. He's like, Now she walks us further, and you ever been in a adult bookstore with the booths?
No.
Never.
No.
Never.
Cary, I don't know what you're getting me to try to get me to admit to.
Well, what I'm trying to do is create this book. This place was set up sort of like an adult bookstore. What I'm referring to is, now you think you're going to a place to have sex with a hooker and you can have some privacy, right? Well, you did have privacy. It was thin plywood. So in other words, she walks us to this corridor and we're on one corridor, but I could see there was more than one. And there's on each side of us to the right and left, there's like booth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. There must have been like 16 booths plus another 16. And there's plywood.
So you're hearing everything.
You're hearing everything. Oh, and they used to call the wrestlers the old grunt and groaners. So you're here. And then there's a little, there's so many Jethro Tull references I can make. Our ROH scene. Look, she's crawling down the corridor. Well, that was that corridor, then sitting. There's a park bench, right? There wasn't even a park bench. It was like a guy took a piece of plywood, and the thinnest posts that could create a small bench. A true park bench would have been like
a luxury.
Exactly. So she says, so now there we are. And she says, okay, she goes, okay, who wants to go first?
Oh, wow.
Right. So I'm like, you go, Dale. Right. So
I got a lot of questions about what came next, Cary.
Well,
oh my God.
so now I'm sitting on a park bench, right?
Oh.
Not even a park. I'm sitting on this bench.
So you're like you're in the bullpen.
I'm on the bench, and the bench is like dead center of all these. I'm hearing, every sexual sound you could imagine.
And this is crazy because this is all going on in the middle of New York City, underground. There's millions of people who don't know any of this is happening.
Right.
And yet the people that are there,
and there was probably dozens of these places in that area.
God.
There were cheap.
Wow.
There were cheap hotels. But anyway.
Yeah.
So there I am on the bench, and the last thing I'm thinking of is, this is going to be great. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And there goes Dale. He had I had given him the money, and it couldn't have been more than 3 minutes. And he comes out, and he gives me like the classic, from the Little Rascals, like Porky or Buckwheat, with like the okay, right?
Because how else do you react to that? I mean,
well, you don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know. So now it's my turn.
Oh, jeez.
And
oh my goodness!
I remember this. The lady was very nice, and I remember saying to her, I go, "I've never been with a prostitute before." She goes, "Don't worry, honey," and she was very nice, and she made you very relaxed, and it was a happy ending for all.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience. Another one.
There's more than one.
Well, we're going to get to shredded Ed.
Yeah. Okay.
Eventually, when we got a little, I don't know if we either got more savvy or more stupid.
Fine line.
We discovered a place right on 42nd Street, between 7th and 8th.
That's where the M&M store is now. I mean,
the M&M store, right?
It's pretty much right there.
On the north side of the street.
Okay. So maybe
both sides of the street were festooned with the all-night movies, some sex movies, some regular movies. The adult bookstores were in full swing. Yeah.
A lot of famous photos from that time where you see the deep throat on the marquee and movies like that.
Right.
The green door and
right. And I had seen the movie Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, okay, with John Travolta?
With Dustin Hoffman and John Voight.
John Voight, okay, yeah.
And so I knew that there were these. I knew. And I saw some once there were these dudes that stood in front of the theaters. Mm-hmm. Those were the only, it's funny, now that I think about it, the only prostitution besides the dating room, but it's the only, these females tended to stay away from 42nd Street.
Interesting.
They were on 8th Avenue. They were on 9th Avenue, 10th Avenue. But, there were some guys that would hang in front of the movie theaters. But let's talk about the dating room. So someone turned us on to the dating room as if it's this fabulous place and it's a bargain. I go, what kind of bargain? It's $15, man. It's really so. We went there a whopping one time. What a disgusting place. You had to go up an elevator. I was talking about 42nd Street. The south side of 42nd Street. It's so hard to explain, Ian, but there was just like little areas where certain drugs were being hustled. There was a lot of rip-off artists because these kids would come from Long Island, New Jersey, or wherever, the suburbs. So they were selling, selling fake drugs.
They get the marks.
Right, because they didn't, the penalties for selling real cocaine were severe. You could get weed, but yet on this north side of 42nd, near 8th Avenue, it was like a convention of pills and, like Valium And
Quaaludes big.
No, they didn't have Quaaludes, but they had this stuff called two-and-alls.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
And those were legit. But that was just there was just a pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what a wonderful street.
Yeah, now you go there and it's families. Well, pre-pandemic, it's families and people in dress-up costumes.
Right. A great companion piece to our podcast, especially these the ones we've been doing. And our producer AJ, did you see The Deuce? The Deuce on HBO, which is about this era.
Yeah.
Anyway, the dating room. So I think it was an elevator. It might have been 2 flights of stairs. And you got off the elevator. And this time it was brightly lit and the opposite of the place that nice lady took us.
Oh.
And it's brightly lit. And there's a guy at a desk. He's elevated. Sort of like a carnival.
Okay.
And you're right?
Are you coming by your ticket at the booth?
Right,
And he's elevated?
Right. The guy's he goes, it's $5. and then the rest you negotiate in the back, my man.
They should have unionized like the other girls. The other girls had it right.
Well, we pay the $5 and the guy hands you a ticket.
Okay.
But just like like the little ticket you would get for a raffle.
Yeah. That's a nice touch.
He hands you a ticket. Mm-hmm. And we went in the back and good God, if there were the 200 girls out on 8th Avenue, which were there right then, and probably would have taken the bottom 10% of them, they were in the dating room.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what it came down to was you either forfeited your $5 and just left or picked the least disgusting girl.
Oh, my goodness.
Because it was a shabby bunch, to say the least.
Oh.
And my experience, I hold nothing back on this podcast.
Yeah.
This is just life experiences. More people should talk honest.
Yeah.
But people are married. But I'll tell my stories. I'm not embarrassed. So I quickly picked this one woman who was like the least of the worst, because I was with 3 friends, which would there was probably 20 ladies there.
So your odds would decrease.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she takes me. This place had fine safety standards, though.
Yeah.
That much I could say.
Okay. Thicker walls?
No. The first thing she asked me to do was, I go in the back, and it was $10, right? $10 for...
so 15 total between the entry fee and the...
Right, $10, and it was whatever you wanted to do, right? But $10. And so I give her the 10, and she says, pull down your pants. I'm like, and she has a bucket. And the first thing she does is she grabs your junk and checks it. So there's not visible gonorrhea.
You know what? Safety first. We've talked about this. I was a sex educator at NYU. If you're going to have some standards, you might as well have something, right? You might as well have protection. You might as well do visual checks. I'm for that. I endorse that.
Well, that was the part. It didn't end there. The safety protocols were
we should have safe sex workers.
Were to the highest regard, because if you pass that hurdle,
yeah, the
next thing she did was she took a brand new towel and some warm water, and she washed off your private parts.
That's nice.
To her satisfaction, and then the rest was academic.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Oh, yeah.
First documented case of HIV is around 79, 80. any concerns about anything other than gonorrhea? I mean, herpes, gonorrhea, those are all known by then.
I wasn't thinking about that stuff at the time.
Condoms? Are they?
I wasn't going to do anything that most likely would regard where condoms would commonly be used.
Okay, gotcha. And there's another big question, but I think we'll save that for a more important podcast.
Well, we only went to the dating room one time. Can you blame us?
No.
But guess what? I'll tell you about a situation that's worse.
Really?
I didn't listen to my cousin's advice.
Oh, Mike G never steers you wrong, though.
Right. So one night, once again, Dale had this big. It was like a Delta 88, 1963, and it was a convertible.
Oh wow!
And it was our friend Joe Squillis's birthday. So it was, I knew it was Dale, myself, Joe Squillis, and there was a fourth. It might have been my good old Cary, who was with me on the Savage trip. Mm-hmm. And we went in, right? Now, it was a steaming, it was like the Meatloaf song.
Okay.
It was a hot summer night. How's it going, right?
Yeah.
Right? It was just like it is tonight. It was a hot summer night. And we didn't have a lot of money. And I was like, ooh, I remember my cousin told me if we go over to 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, there's really cheap girls. I go, but we got to be careful, because he told me that some of them might be guys. And
back then, that now, you're free to express yourself, and there's even it's on the open on the internet. If that's something you enjoy, you can arrange that. But back then, I would assume that was much more frowned upon and had a huge stigma.
Right, and well, as it turned out, that did not come into the picture. Mm-hmm. But what came into here's the picture. We're on 10th Avenue. You've been on 10th Avenue. It's very industrial.
Yeah.
Maybe now it's different.
No, I mean, when we run Terminal 5, right. It's mostly industrial buildings. The fabric buildings are over there in the garment district as you go further down.
Well, this is in the 40s, going into the 30s from like 45th Street to 35th Street.
It gets quieter and darker.
Well, not on a summer night of August of the mid 70s. There's hundreds of these hookers out there.
Well, you see,
and we got the convertible down.
Okay.
So we're like just looking like, holy shit. Talk about cops and rock. It's like you see pimps. Once again, watch The Deuce. Mm-hmm. You see pimps, and you could see a cop car on the side. They're not even giving a shit. And all these women. Well, all of a sudden, two women jump in the car.
Excuse me?
Yes. We were at a light. And two women jump in the car. And, none of my friends, I was the one who had to do all the talking.
Did they need help?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, she's like, oh, come on. The one who's I'm in the back. This is a lady, and she was a big lady, right? And there's another one in the front, and I'm like, hey, we just want to get one of our friends, a girl. And she's like, oh, come on, baby, come on. And I remember so all of a sudden, what comes on the radio? This will tell you what year it is. Remember that great disco hit, which I'm gonna miserably fail to reproduce here. Take me in your arms, rock me, baby.
Oh, Andy Gibb. Was that Andy Gibb?
No. Take me in your arms, rock me, baby.
Wow, you stumped me on that one.
Well, that was a top 10 hit at the time, which I'm not doing it much justice. But the girl in the back next to me, who wanted us all to have a good time, she starts singing.
Wow.
At the top of her lungs, as we're still at the light, take me in your car, fuck me, baby.
Holy. Wow.
We had to filter the song into this podcast, but so I'm like, miss, I just want to get someone for our friend. It's his birthday. She goes to me and she puts her arm around me. She says, come on, baby. And then as if this was going to sell me as a fabulous bargain and something to make me be like, okay, she goes, after doing one more chorus of the Fuck Me Baby song.
Holy crap.
She goes, and I'm demurring from her request. She goes, she pulls out from her top one giant titty.
Oh my.
And she like my it would be like this. Come on, baby.
Oh my God.
Let's party. Give me another $5. Suck titty and everything.
Oh jeez. I would not have lasted
titty and everything.
I would not have survived the 70s. I would have been I would have either locked myself in the house or been dead. There's no in between. There's no in between.
Somehow, I think we gave her. I didn't suck titty and everything.
Oh, well,
I think I gave her $5 to get out of the car
to get loose.
and
yeah.
then we.
I thought you were going to tell me she needed help, and then she clearly needed other kind of help. But I thought you were going to tell me that she was running away from somebody.
No.
Wow.
These girls were vicious. I mean, you really had to be careful.
And that scam, when I was going to college. The scam of the free merchandise that would go on with CDs of guys giving you mixtapes.
I can't stand that.
Yeah, no. Thankfully, that's kind of come and gone.
This really wasn't a scam, but it was insane. It was insane. It was insane. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
The classic thing was you had to, and I was hip to this. I mean, I didn't have any money anyway, but you had to make sure, your wallet and any valuables, because if your pants are down, I don't have to explain the rest.
Sure.
They're going through them.
Yeah.
There's very few of them that wouldn't.
Right.
It's just like it's like a requirement of the job. Unless maybe it was a regular customer.
Yeah.
But these are not regular customers. So yeah, there was some.
That's the craziest. That's insane.
Yeah, there's a few others, but we're going to get to Shredded Ed.
Yeah, let's get to Shredded Ed because
now we're going to go to the others. Now we went from the lowest to the low.
Yeah.
And I got to throw this in, or it'll get lost. Jumping ahead a couple years was the first time I hooked up with a male prostitute in the city.
I was going to ask you about that but maybe that could be a bigger episode one day.
Okay, so, so Shredded Ed. Shredded Ed's going out with this woman, quote unquote, like it's his girlfriend. He's telling me she's working at this place. It's on the east side, and I'm going to pay for you. This would cost $150.
Wow.
This is at the same time the dating room was $15.
Right. So
he brings me to this place. The address was like, I don't know, 122 East 41st Street, like 41st between Madison and Park.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nice neighborhood. And there's a bell on the street level. There's no sign. And you hit the bell, they buzz you in. There's a second bell. They buzz you in. And the name of the place was called Caesar's Retreat or Caesar's Harem, one of the two.
Okay, we actually hit on that last time. We mentioned it last time.
Right.
They were going to say Plato's Retreat.
No, it's not Plato's Retreat. So we go in this place, and Ed's girl was working. Okay. And Ed said to me, look, just pick a girl, go do your thing. And I'm looking, once again, there's the guy at the desk, except this guy is,
Classier.
Right.
Yeah.
And behind the guy is this big wooden menu. Like if you put 3 or 4 of our posters together,
Wow.
and it had like Roman numeral 1, goddess of your choice, da 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 da, da, and the price. Roman numeral.
So they were ahead of McDonald's on this. Just make it simple. You get your choices. You get the.
I'll have a 4.
Yeah,
please.
I mean, and that McDonald's gained great operational efficiency. I can't imagine Caesar's also didn't.
So I think Ed's girl knew what time he was coming, so she wouldn't be involved
Engaged.
with someone else. And I found this really, all the women there were, you had to be gorgeous, you know. And I found this really nice petite girl, and I mean, I was only like 21 years old, you know, and like they're used to. The average customer there, I'm sure, was 40 and up most of the time.
Yeah.
And it takes me to this show. You know, I go, yeah, I'm Ed's friend. She, oh, cool. Hey, you got any Coke?
Oh, this is when it starts to.
And she, I go, I gotta get. He's got some. I go, you go ask. Now he's in the room with his girl. I go, you go. I go, you better go ask, because if I go, he's gonna be pissed off.
Yeah.
So there was nothing to put it on. So she was smart though. She takes the tissue box.
Oh.
No, maybe she didn't, but she came back with the tissue box and a nice pile of Coke that Ed said, here, go, right? And it was fantastic. There was a sunken bathtub.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So we're talking major upgrade from the
Right.
park bench.
That's right.
And then the plywood.
The sunken bathtub. And a lot of times on cocaine, it's hard. It's a very psychosexual drug, except you can't achieve any kind of completion.
Interesting. And because I've heard
or even get hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so did that, I mean, not to get too personal, but did that ever cause any moments of
Not this time.
Okay.
For some reason, I was able to
focus?
I was very comfortable, and she was cool, and that was the nicest thing that Shredded had ever did. That's for sure.
But so we're coming up on an hour. So let's talk about the triangulation and set up the next episode. So we got Shredded Ed, we got George, and we got the third gentleman,
Stuart.
that you were all you're starting to Ponzi scheme.
There becomes more.
Yeah, and you're getting into some trouble, I assume, at this point.
And there's financial trouble. There's worries about getting busted.
Yeah.
There's other things. And there's a new band that comes along.
Okay.
And it's the Bonnie Parker Band.
Okay.
And we're going to talk a little bit about them also.
Yeah.
But see, we had no idea. This is the beauty of this. We had no idea this episode was going to be dedicated to basically the world of prostitution in the 70s, and a little retrospective of how New York was set up.
It blows my mind because I lived there for 4 years. I'm sure some of this was still going on, even though it wasn't on the street as visible.
There was an East Side neighborhood. For some reason on the East Side, now I mentioned that the real nice place was like East 41st, but there was like somewhere in the third, it might have been near the, what's that tunnel that goes to Queens, the Midtown Tunnel?
Yep.
There was another whole section down there. And when the girls, I failed to mention, besides the fact, and I mentioned that there were very few there were like no girl hookers on 42nd, and there were a few dudes, but there were dudes above 42nd on 8th Avenue, and there were no women.
Interesting.
Not a lot of them.
Yeah.
And there's a very famous Ramones song, by the way.
Yeah.
Our good friend Ryan Ginley will be thrilled that I mentioned this.
Yeah.
And you might be familiar with this. AJ, you might know the song, but I'm not sure which Ramone it was that did some time in this profession as a male hooker on the street. And the name of the song is 53rd and 3rd.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody would ever think that 53rd and 3rd,
right,
which was it was a business area, somehow became a mecca of male prostitution.
Amazing.
So this is the kind of stuff. This is why we want you to subscribe to Last Stop Penn Station.
Yeah.
This is why we want you to tell your friends about Last Stop Penn Station, because you're not going to hear about characters. There's 8. I like listening to podcasts, certain ones, and there's like 8 million podcasts about wrestling, and I listen to the few that I like. Mm-hmm. But where are you going to hear these stories?
Let's tie it back. Let's tie it back to wrestling, because you bring up a good point. So I'll just hit you with some different stuff. What's your family relationship at this point? Did you move back in? Are you crashing, couch surfing?
Couch surfing.
Okay.
And staying at my parents' house.
Are you watching any wrestling? You're still a fan
still
of this
watching
point?
Still watching wrestling. Mm-hmm. Faded out a bit. I remember dragging Jeff a couple times to the Garden. But still paying attention to it.
You remember seeing Superstar Billy Graham at all?
I was tripping.
Oh, really?
On some very light acid.
Wow.
Jeff and I went, and it was him and Bruno.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It might have been when Superstar had the belt.
Yeah, they didn't want to change the belt in the Garden.
And Superstar came out, and we were on this light, psychedelic buzz, and we were like in the 10th row, and like the belt was gleaming, like it was like
Well, they had those weird garden lights too, where it was just the ring was lit.
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah. So yes, I was still.
What did Ernie Roth look like, the Grand Wizard?
I don't remember.
Any favorite bands at that point? Because Zeppelin's kind of slowing down, and we talked off air a little bit. Cocaine at the time, you told me, kind of comes into prominence in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, based on some rock and roll guys dabbling. How do you find out about cocaine for the first time?
Well, the first time I ever did it. What do you mean find out about it? Like
just first time you heard about it on the news or in the.
You would hear about it, but it was portrayed as something the stars did.
That's
something.
Wow.
Yeah, and you could go back and look, or you could ask your dad.
Yeah.
Or your mom. It was and it was even a non-addictive, they would say, and it was a safe drug, and but it was very glamorous. That's.
Well, Studio 54 reopens and brands itself as the Studio 54 we know in 77, I think. Did you ever go to Studio 54?
No, nor I didn't have any desire to.
Okay.
And there's a couple of characters that will filter in to the next episode. I made yet another connection.
Okay.
George, Rock and Roll George. I don't know if we talked about this off air or on air. If we talked about it on air, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. I don't think we did. He used to like to drive into the city to Bleecker Street to this particular barber shop. I don't think we talked about this on air.
We didn't talk about it.
And he went to this barber shop because he knew the barber and he could do coke in the back with the guy. And it was like cool and blah, blah, blah. So once he took me there, it was like a day trip. And then when I was in the city, I stopped in a couple times to see the barber, get my hair cut. And I was in there this one time, and I had just done some kind of deal where I had a lot of money in my pocket. It wasn't my money. Probably was George's money. Might have been Shredded Ed's money. It might have been some of it. And I had some coke, and a friend of the barber says to me, I know these guys that get this really good stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah? He goes, yeah. And they're really good guys. They're real cool and discreet. And I was like, I only trusted this guy because the barber who I'd met like 3 or 4 times was, Cary, you don't have to worry about Johnny here. He seems cool. So he tells me about Claude and Monty.
Claude and Monty.
Who lived separately, but on the Upper East Side.
Okay. And
I got to meet them. We'll get into them in the next episode. but they used to go to Studio 54
Really?
and were one of the many cocaine distributors. I'm sure the place must have had dozens and dozens of them.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was a special time.
It's a wild ride. I don't know that I don't know that I would have lived there or gone there. I mean, I was so prude at 18 in 2005 when it's safe and it's, they're promoting how, you can walk the streets and do all this, and it wasn't but 10 years before that when it was still had the reputation of being, filled with crime and this and that and all these other.
Well, let's get through this. Let's wrap this episode up.
Yeah.
Because I'll have stories when we get later into the 8. When you think this was, New York was bad.
Yeah.
But in the mid 80s with the crack explosion.
Yeah.
And we touched on some of our previous episodes. But this was a lot of fun today.
Absolutely, yeah. I learned a lot.
You get the greatest education on Last Stop Penn Station.
You sure do, and especially for somebody that hasn't experienced those things, it's a lot of fun going through the journey with you.
And you don't want to experience these things,
there
but you
go.
can live vicariously through the mistakes I made, and I'm lucky to be sitting here tonight. And that's the truth.
It's always amazing. I think back to some of the stories you've told me off the air that we can't repeat on the air, and some of the ones you have. And we've talked about Madison Square Garden. If you think there's not an opportunity to change and to turn things around and to achieve your biggest dreams, for a lot of people there can be, and that's the message that we want to continue to hammer home. So
beautiful.
It's been another wild ride here on Last Stop Penn Station. We encourage you to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Podcasts, all that fun stuff. Buy the T-shirt at laststoppennstation.com.
And the camel.
The camel. Hey, shout out to Mike and his wife from the Iron Pigs Clubhouse store, who are big fans. I went in and I bought the Iron Pigs Pride shirt and this wonderful Fosnot hat. They listen to us every week. They wanted to say.
Really?
They do. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Big.
And I want to give a shout out to our producer, AJ.
Absolutely.
He does a great job with the sound creative. And
unsung hero.
He is an unsung hero. As a matter of fact, I guess it's going to be released, was the week-to-week ROH release with the games?
It just was this past Monday. You can go on YouTube and watch it right now. Great footage of the pinball machines.
And that's thanks to AJ.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
Think I could do that? No.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Check it out. And hey, I'm as excited as you are about Ring of Honor's return.
Yeah.
I'm headed down to Baltimore next week to call some action. I'll tell you what, first class, top of the line tests. They're testing us pretty frequently. We had a baseline test. We're going to be tested when we get there, tested before the event, tested when we go home.
I'm sad. I'm conflicted. I'd love to be there, but I understand it's safety first. I don't really want to be locked away. But at the same time, naturally, I want to be there. But yeah, Ring of Honor, new content, exciting action is returning.
Absolutely. And that'll be coming your way very shortly after we film it and record it and get it ready for TV. So for Cary Silkin, I'm Ian Riccaboni. Thanks for listening. Happy wrestling, everybody. And we'll see you next week on Last Stop Penn Station.
I thank God it's still the handle and the train and won't stop. Oh, no, it just slowed down.
We hail you for listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.